Hey art nerds, we are doing another clothed figure from reference. This is another figure from lineofaction.com, and you guys will be able to find a link in the description below. They also offer reference for animals, environments, and more, and I'm looking forward to kind of exploring that a little bit later. So we are working with a seated pose today. You guys know I struggle with those, so I slapped down a quick triangle to sort of help me position my figure. And we start with the rectangle for the torso, with the shoulders, which is the top of the rectangle, being wider than both the waist, which is sort of that midpoint of the rectangle, as well as the bottom, which is where the pelvis is going to go. I go ahead and I sketch in a rib cage. Those are pretty much the same, male or female. And I start doing wireframe or stick figure sketching for the figure. So if you can draw a stick figure, I am fully confident you can learn constructive human anatomy. So I start fleshing things in, figuring out where things are going to go. I start fleshing in the head, and this is kind of based on Loomis's Drawing the Head and Hands, as well as what I learned in Paul Hudson's Constructive Human Anatomy. And I have other tutorials where I demonstrate drawing the head in more detail if that's something you're interested in learning. I also start fleshing out the arms and legs using modified cylinders. I want to kind of express the muscle form so it'll be easier for me to draw a little bit later on. If you're still kind of getting your sea legs for figure drawing, you don't have to do that. You can stick with cylinders and just refine them. I've also sketched in the hands, and I really focus on capturing the gesture of the hands or using sort of blocky shapes to place the hands. I'm really not concerned with capturing any detail at this point in time. I just kind of want to make sure that everything is in proportion and everything makes sense. He is holding a knife in this sketch, so I want to make sure I place that as well because his arm is resting on that, so it helps kind of give me a sense of relation. Now I'm kind of tightening things up, refining things, sketching in the muscles in a bit more detail. He has really sharp elbows, and that's something I want to make sure I convey. Now, if you're still really new to figure drawing, it often helps to draw figures who are not wearing form-covering clothing. But as you grow and as you improve at figure drawing, you're going to want to practice drawing clothed figures. So to me, it makes sense to kind of do a mix of both. Now, I messed up on his hood. His hood is way too tall. It looks like a different kind of hood. So if I were to redraw that, I would definitely fix that hood. Like, looking at it is way too big and it makes his head look small. But this is just a sketch. It is just practice, so I'm not really concerned on that. I could always just slap a post-it note like I've done in the past and fix it from there. So I'm sort of sketching in his clothing now. Since it does alter the forms of his body, it's important to capture that and to capture it in relation to everything else. It can be used as landmarks. Also kind of tightening up his hands. And I wanted to talk to you guys for a quick moment about hands. I think of them as like home base or home plate. So it's kind of like a home plate in a baseball diamond is how the palm of your hand roughly looks. And if you can capture that, if you're going for a cartoony style, the fingers are pretty simple. A lot of artists will do 2 joints rather than 3 joints for cartoony art, and some won't even draw like actual joints. They'll just draw the fingers curved, kind of like a banana, like a rubber hose animation style. At this point, I'm just kind of refining the muscles, tightening up the muscles, figuring out where all that goes. Now I'm going to start sketching in the face. His face is not as obscured as our last male from reference model, but a lot of it is still covered by his hood, and he has really sharp cheekbones, sharp features, so I want to make sure I capture that. Drawing men is something I kind of struggle with. I draw a lot of women, and I being a woman, I can reference myself in the mirror, so that's not that difficult. It's drawing men. I can't just go grab a mirror or grab my phone. Of course, I can Google it. So at this point, I'm just shading things in. We've discussed in other videos how working on how light hits the form is something I am doing when I'm doing these figure drawings. I want to get better at that for my watercolor comic, so I definitely need to pay more attention to light sources, and this is an excellent opportunity to do that. Especially when it comes to musculature, how light falls on human muscles. Not having any muscles of my own, I can't really reference that. I'm just perfectly cylindrical. So it's good to pay attention when you're working from reference, especially if you can't turn to a mirror for reference or for inspiration. I'm also interested in how the light is hitting his clothing. I feel like this is something I really struggle with. And I tend to take kind of the cheap way out, so it is definitely an area I want to focus on. As with anything art related, the more you practice, the more you take notes, the more you pay attention, the better you are going to get. If you can approach your art from an analytical, not just critical point of view, don't focus on how bad you are, focus on what you're doing wrong and what you can do to improve, you can definitely make great strides. So thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Bye guys!